God bless you, my brothers and sisters. We are continuing in our 40 Days of Decrease series. I want to remind you to read through the scriptures today for John chapter 18, verses 25 through 27. Today we are fasting from denial. And denial isn't typically loud. More often it comes quietly as avoidance, as silence, as refusal to say what we fear might cost us something. Denial is an enemy of intimacy because it fractures the self. Where truth is withheld, communion weakens. But Lynn invites us to notice not only what we say, but what we refuse to name. Today brings us face to face with denial, not as a single moment of failure, but as a process that unfolds when fear outpaces faith. Denial is the act of distancing ourselves from truth in order to preserve safety, reputation, or control. Spiritually, denial allows us to remain near Jesus without being known as those who belong to him. It's not always outright rejection. Often, it's selective silence under pressure. To fast from denial is not to claim bravery we do not yet possess. It's to refuse hiding. It's to bring our fear honestly before God rather than pretending allegiance that cannot withstand scrutiny. John records, "Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. So they said to him, 'You are also not one of his disciples, are you?' He denied it and said, 'I am not,' in John 18:25. The question is simple, but the denial is immediate. Proximity without courage collapses quickly. John continues in verse 26. One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, 'Did I not see you in the garden with him?' In verse 26, don't miss this. I'm embellishing here, but he said, 'I was with my cousin in the garden when you cut off his ear. Aren't you the one that was there with him?' Pressure increases, memory sharpens, and silence is no longer enough. John writes in verse 27, Peter again denied it, and at once a rooster crowed. That sound is abrupt. It marks the moment where denial is complete and truth unavoidable. Peter's words and identity are no longer in alignment. Denial does not begin with hatred of Jesus. It begins with fear of consequence. Peter's denials arise not from disbelief, but from self-preservation. He wants to remain near Jesus without sharing his fate. Jesus, by contrast, does not deny his emotions in the garden at all. He names them honestly before the Father. He brings fear into communion rather than hiding it. Peter hides fear and loses himself. Jesus acknowledges fear and remains obedient. Denial fractures discipleship because it fractures integrity. When words deny what the heart knows to be true, intimacy with God and others erodes. Here's the heart of today. Denial protects the self at the cost of the soul's honesty. Faithful discipleship requires truth spoken even when it trembles. The rooster's crow is not merely exposure, it's mercy. It calls Peter back to himself. And Lent retrains us to hear that call sooner. You don't have to wait for the rooster to crow, but the Spirit of God that lives inside of you will convict you and remind you of the truth that you know. Lent slows us down long enough to confront our evasions. By fasting denial, we practice bringing fear into God's presence rather than pretending it does not exist. This discipline restores integrity not by demanding courage, but by cultivating honesty. Honesty before God becomes the soil where courage can grow. So today's fast invites you to name what you have avoided. Where have you remained silent to protect yourself? Where have you answered truth with evasion? Choose one act of honesty today. This may be a confession to God, an acknowledgement to another, or the courage to name your allegiance clearly. The aim is not dramatic speech, but faithful alignment between the heart and the mouth. Here are your questions for reflection as you prepare to read the scriptures today and pray. What fears most often lead me toward denial? Where have I protected myself at the expense of integrity? And how might honesty restore intimacy with God and others? Our scriptures for today again are John chapter 18, verses 25 through 27. And I want to encourage you to read through those as you prepare to pray today and actually take the time to spend some time and linger in prayer today on this important theme. God bless you, my brothers and sisters, and we'll see you tomorrow.